Hello, everybody. Wanted to thank everyone for joining this webinar about revolutionizing the local search experience. We're going to have a lot of great content for you today. Some great panelists, not only from the Rio SEO side, but then also from the Radius 8 side on top of that. Within that discussion, really want to go through, how multi-location marketers manage their brand. How can we do omni-channel? How can we understand what the past year has really taught us when it comes to driving to either locations or driving a local or hyper localized experience. Knowing that there's been a lot of mass disruptions within there, we understand that it takes two to tango, right? There's got to be that push and pull in between either in store or online, or even how we do that through the e-com side as well. So consumer behavior has definitely changed, and it's made it difficult for brands like most of you on the call itself. And so with all the challenges happening, we really want to talk about what is that consumer journey, right? What's that consumer or customer experience that you can provide that's different from the old traditional SEO, local SEO, and so forth. So what that means is creating those new opportunities. And I think it's going to be a lot of good learning on this particular webinar, thinking of how we can do that, especially with the team on the call. So we're going to actually go through those and see the untapped opportunities, right? What does it look like? How can we do it? How can you do it, right? Which can be different for each individual. And so also we want to talk about how do you deploy a hyper-localized experience, because that could mean a lot of things, right? It could be across, the e-com to local weather events and so forth, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think it will be a good segue once we hop into kind of most of the partnership that we have with Radius 8 today. So now I'll just introduce myself real quick. My name is Tyler Ludwig, Director of Enterprise Solutions here at Rio SEO. I've been here for close to a decade, really focused in the local space across, marketing, how we do it with a lot of enterprise brands across the board. And then on top of that, I'm thrilled to be joined by one of my colleagues, Scott McNulty. He is one of our senior business development individuals at Rio SEO itself, and really has a lot of great experience, from local to just digital marketing in general. So happy to have him on the call. And then we also have the SVP of business development at Radius 8, Harlan Eplin, who's going to go through a lot of what they do and how we partner together. So Harlan, if you don't mind, just giving a little brief introduction about yourself and your background.
I think you're on mute, Harlan. There you go.
Rookie move. SVP of Business Development and neophyte with Zoom. I appreciate the introduction. We are a localization platform, and we've recently announced a partnership with Rio, where we leverage a lot of Rio's technology and build upon it so that you can do more with the Rio platform and leverage it to do localization. And I've got a whole bunch of demo and slides later on, so I won't steal any more thunder.
Perfect. Scott, kick it away.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, real quick. Scott McNulty, as Tyler mentioned, Rio SEO. Love being a part of the team here. I'm kind of representing, though, on today's call, the LBMA, the Location-Based Marketing Association. I've been a part of that organization for 6 years, and we're a nonprofit marketing organization that's really truly just built around promoting location technologies to different brands across all verticals to help drive consumers to your brands. So whether that's local, organic, beacons, Wi-Fi, all different types of location marketing, we are there as an organization to help brands understand those tools and how they can better utilize those tools to drive consumers to their businesses.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
And Harlan as well. Really want to, clear up some quick things. Obviously, we can't all be in person. Events are different nowadays, but we might not hear you, but we can field a lot of things through Q&A. So just some housekeeping things. Want to make sure you utilize the Q&A button. I'll field those through there as well. There's going to be some times where we'll actually do polling on top of that. So I'll launch those and you guys can voice how this works within your organization. On top of that is, you can follow today's webinar on Twitter. So we're going to live tweet. It's at Rio_SEO or using the hashtag RIO webinar, all one word. So that will give you a way to, have interaction with us and the panelists. And then on top of that is also, it's going to be recorded. So we will send out, after this is over, we'll record it. And that way you have it at your fingertips whenever you need. Look for a follow-up from our team on top of that. Okay. So moving on, breaking down kind of what's happening or what we're going to talk about today. Obviously, we say revolutionizing, right? Things are different. So really when it comes down to, importance of search, what does that look like for touch points across the entire ecosystem? How do you create a hyperlocal experience and what does that look like really? And Harlan's going to go into a lot of great examples of that. And then how does Radius 8 and RioSEO actually create an optimized experience? Because I think it's a full solution that requires multiple different technologies, especially where people are, fit their best, right? When it comes to being an expert in that space. So I'll jump it off or kick it off to this question. Why do brands need to have an optimized experience at all touch points, such as their local listings and local pages? And I think really to kick this off, I'll ask Scott, what do you think about the experience and how that works based on your experience as well?
So, the search ecosystem has become so massive today for a brand. You've got consumers looking at you online, they're looking at you in mobile, they're searching for you in apps, they're communicating with you through all types of different devices. We're not real big. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers out there today, but one of the polls or one of the studies we just recently got from Harvard Business Review was 73% of all consumers use multiple channels when they're in the process of making a purchase or that purchase journey. So it's incredibly important that especially we've seen over the last year, right? For going from March of 2020 to where we are today, there's been so many changes and consumers' behaviors have changed when they're looking for goods and services as well. So making sure that you're aligned when a consumer searches for you in a mapping system, or you have a page set up for that hyper-local content around that location where your store is really important that we reach those consumers with those different tools. Making sure they're updated, making sure they have correct information has become more important every single day. We've learned that over and over again. So it really kind of just sets the table for you to compete in those areas where your locations are.
And I want to add to that, Scott. In addition to that, the website, and we tend to focus more on the homepage, and the website and the homepage needs to be relevant and support the stores. If you think about the website today, for most brands, the digital experience on the homepage doesn't really help surface the store, other than driving potentially a BOPUS, and the website does a great job for people that
Right.
reserve online or pick up or buy online, pick up in store. But these stores that people are deploying today, and I'll talk about this in a few minutes with some examples, are experiential. There's a lot of things going on. How do we surface that information to the people that go onto the homepage and they go directly to your homepage and say, hey, by the way, there's all this stuff happening near you, and automatically do that? And so we'll talk about some of these examples later on. But the other point I want to bring is an omni-channel shopper is worth more. Time and time
Right.
again, studies show that the consumer that shops online and goes into the store and does both tends to spend more with the brand. So you need to be more cohesive than just surfacing buy online, pick up in store. And that's sort of the mantra I'm going to be talking about today as well.
Great point, Harlan.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah, and I think that, it kind of takes us into Additional things, right? Store open near me. There's a lot of near me searches. Near me was huge, right? When
Yeah.
you'd actually have to query it. But I think what's changed a lot is, especially around Google voice search, they already imply the near me next to you, right? Using that. So there's a lot of great stats around that. I don't know, Scott, if you want to dive into this a little bit more, but
Yeah.
from what you've seen, but I definitely think there's an implication that doesn't require a user to say near me. It's
No,
already
you're right.
right.
Yeah. And I think at the LBMA, one of the things that we've seen is this trend towards mobile, right? We've seen this trend come year over year over year. And now we've really seen this explosive growth with these near me searches on a phone. So consumers are looking for you in that micro moment of need, right? So that's what we call it, that micro moment of need, when they're there trying to find out about your goods and services or find out about that location. And we need to give them that information that's correct and up to date. And as Harlan was saying, more than just name, address, phone number, we need to start talking about things that are in and around that area, like potentially bringing in weather. This past weekend here in San Diego, and not a lot of you are in San Diego, I was getting some of my propane ready for the grilling season because it's warm here. But in the Midwest, on the East Coast, they're still selling snow shovels and snow blowers. So there's a different experiences for consumers that are based in those locales. And how do we capture that and share that with consumers is really, really important, especially in mobile.
Yeah, and I think on top of that too is looking at how you utilize analytics within a platform as well. So either web analytics, what's that search behavior that's actually driving in keywords, and breaking that down by location, because I think that's going to really tell a good story, as well as how do you optimize for it, right? I'm not selling snow blowers and shovels here in San Diego, even though we did have hail a couple weeks ago, but I think that melted off in about an hour. So in those particular cases, I think that's where looking at analytics on top of just the campaigns as well really makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I could talk through this real quick as
Yeah.
far as, a single source of truth, and Scott, chime in here as well, is, data's hard, right? Working with some of the largest, multi-location brands, global brands, there's always a convolution of, where do we get our data? Is it IT? Is it in a director of ops or things like that? But it's probably the most important piece, because without that single source of truth, you're going to struggle, right? And not really get the right information, and you could even, make customers mad, right? With review.
Yeah.
I went to the wrong driving direction. So it always begins with that search, discover, then they engage, right? Google the new homepage, right? There's a lot of information that you could push out there. And it's primarily mobile, right? If you look at those web analytics as well. So Scott, anything you want to add on that one?
Yeah, I think what we just saw 2 weeks ago with so much of the country shut down because of a cold snap, that it really the importance of that really kind of came to the top, right? So many different brands, whether you're a CVS or you're a bank or you're someone that your customers need to get something from you, needed to communicate to their consumers to let them know whether or not those locations were open. Obviously, COVID, which is still unfortunately ravaging our country, you want to find out what are the protocols before you go in there. So all that information can be held in a single source of truth that can then be pushed out across the search ecosystem, allowing your customers to have a good experience with your locations when they're going there.
And I want to chime in on this part. That is really the crux of today's shopper, right? They're starting off on mobile, 80%. At least,
80%.
and I think we're doing a poll question on this webinar to ask what percentage of your traffic is on mobile. But the mobile web visitor isn't going to click around looking for this information. So how do I surface that information that's relevant based on my location without me having to put in my zip code, go and hunt for the information? So this goes back to the sort of the old adage of push versus pull. And that's where a localization platform says, I know where the person is. I'm just going to serve up, hey, your nearest store is open today, or hey, the store is closed today because of the ice storm. and servicing that as opposed to making the consumer hunt for the information. And so that's sort of where I think the things are going, is that knowing the consumer, where they are, serving up that information, whether it's snow blowers are available because it's snowing in Boston, or it's propane season, time to get your propane tanks for your barbecue.
Perfect.
Great point.
Yeah, I had actually a question come in just real quick through the Q&A is, love having the idea of empowering local owners to own information in the local space. Any advice on facilitating that process? Scott, I'll kick that over to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. If you're a franchisor, how do you communicate with those local owners? Making sure that they are communicating to you events in that community, what's happening in and around them, how are they affecting their community? Is it with specials? Are they offering something going on, something taking place there? Is there a blood drive? Is there a for Labor Day, are you doing something there? Getting that information from those local owners and passing it on to the marketing team allows them to kind of create an idea of what's happening in and around that area. All those things then can be surfaced and shown within those GMB pages, bringing real relevance. So we can post events, we can post meetings, we can post specials within that organization's GMB page that then speaks to the brand and how they're impacting that local community.
Yeah, great. And I think on top of that is, depends on your size, right? So if you think of, very small, 1, 2, 3 locations, right? A lot of that can be done, using the tools that are out there today, like within GMB, the post, so forth. But when you think of a larger scale, so every organization is different. It could go from a regional director down to a store owner or franchisee. And then what do you limit them or give them access to from content? And I think that strategy and a workflow in between, it has to be communicative, much like this conversation we're having right now, is how do you bring that all together in some centralized place for marketing, for social, for GMB, for all the other networks out there, is having that game plan of how you structure it. And I think structure is one of the key points there. And so we could talk about this. This kind of rolls off of what Scott was talking about, as well as the last slide is, what are those opportunities, right? Is it, we have to change our strategy, especially with COVID, of what you can present, right? And Google is rolling out, especially, a lot more features like the in-store shopping. It's curbside only, right? Do you have that database in line as well, as far as how you present that? Because one location might actually have delivery, right? And you can even see in here, ad from Instacart is now showing up, right? That's been a huge piece of that as well. But then also, does it require a mask, right? Some parts of the country don't, some do. And I think having all those details where you can really almost serve up on a plate to the consumer will definitely better the conversion path, regardless if it's e-com or in-store or curbside as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great point, Tyler.
I think more than ever, we've learned this past year that you need the flexibility to make sure that your listings and your information is up to date and it's propagated out correctly. Because it used to be, you knew that the Gap store was going to be open, right, at the local mall, and you knew what time it was. But now, with rolling opens and closes and everything, is this going to be the last time this happens? I hope so, but you need that flexibility to have a single source of truth. So I think more than ever, the value prop is there to make sure you're up to date and all the time.
Right. Perfect. So kind of gonna move into kind of the next experience of this, but before we do that, I want to open up a poll of what we were talking about earlier as far as mobile, right? We know it's a mobile first world. Everybody's on their phone at all times. So just want to ask one question as far as, and you guys can answer this directly within the screen, is, what % of your traffic to your website is entering via mobile? Because I think that would be some good talking points as we go through. So I'll give you about a minute or so before we move on, but seems like a lot of questions or poll answers are actually coming through right now, which is great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think while this is happening, a good thing to talk about that from our previous screen is mobile does have a different experience than desktop, right? And I think most of us understand that as far as, menu data or clicks to actions, right? Is it scheduling an appointment directly from your phone? Once again, back to the analytics itself, I think that would be a good way for any marketer, big or small, to segment that data, right? Where is it coming from? You can see that within Google My Business today. Also within Google My Business, there's also keywords. So we talked about that keyword segmentation, right? Taking that data and seeing what people are actually clicking on. Obviously, we've seen a lift in phone calls and website clicks versus driving directions for most of our clients. That was assumed to be true anyways. But take a look at that, because as things roll out, as hopefully the world gets better, see what that trend line was over that time. So I'm going to close the poll right now, unless anybody else wants to jump in real quick. I think we got about 54% actually voted on this, but we'll send that out as well. But, 60 to 80%, right?
There you go.
Ready to apply, right?
That's a huge number.
Exactly what's going on, right?
Wow.
So it's 50% of everybody. And it all depends on your business model, right? If you need lead conversion form, maybe you don't have a mobile site ready, website, sometimes that happens, or, depending on the industry. So thank you everybody for contributing to that. That was great. So jump in next. What are hyperlocal experiences and why do they encourage conversions, right? So at this point in time, I'm going to, Scott, if you want to chime in, have anything else left?
No, I was just going to say those hyper-local experiences. We're talking about in-store events. We're talking about promotions. We're talking about bookings. We're talking about appointments. We all understand that each vertical has its own KPIs, and how do we help hyper-localize those experiences? We're thrilled to announce our partnership with Radius 8, which we think brings an opportunity to different verticals and different brands to really help do exactly that, to surface these in-store events or to surface these local stores right to a consumer in that micro moment of need. So Harlan, I'm going to let you kind of take this away and tell us a little bit more about how you can help these brands do that.
Yep. So thanks again. So the next couple of slides are really going to talk through a couple of things. First thing is I'm going to set a little bit of a stage of some best practices that are out there. I try to update research and see what are people doing in terms of local and experiential aspects to their store and to their brand. And then I'll walk through sort of how we engage and how we leverage our relationship with the Rio open local platform and listings and take that to the next level to help localize automatically and surface local information. So if you'll let me share my screen, I think, Tyler, I'll take over from here.
Perfect. We'll stop sharing and then you should be able to take it away.
All right, rock and roll. Okay, so let me just place. All right. So again, I don't want this to be a shameless self-promotion of what Radius does and is. Some of these are our customers, some of them aren't, but I wanted to highlight a couple of use cases for retailers that are looking at their stores differently. Obviously, we've seen an uptick over the last year in e-commerce, significant uptick, even more so. A lot of our brands we're talking to say they've done 3 years of roadmap development, whether it be buy online, pick up in store, if it's a QSR, in terms of being able to surface and be able to support the new business requirements that COVID has forced us into. But I wanted to highlight a couple of brands, and these are mostly brick and mortar apparel brands that are doing some really interesting things, and some quotes. So if you look at what Adidas says, the CEO 6 months ago announced that we're doubling down on e-commerce. And so recently, and I think it was last month, he made another quote, said, you know what, we need these stores. Stores are experiential. We need to have people going in and seeing and having a great store experience. And Adidas is launching more and more of their own stores. They obviously go wholesale, and they're tailoring them to local tastes. So skateboarding in LA, and they're doing a lot more of sort of localization at that level, hiring locally. And so they're really making an effort to have each of their stores have a different footprint, or a thumbprint actually. So not every store is going to look the same if you go into a different store in a different location. And that's from the artwork and the murals all the way down to the merchandising and the staffing within the store. REI is a co-op, and they've always been really, really interesting in that they do a ton of events. Their strategy includes everything from local garage sales, local hikes, clinics. My kid actually got bicycle riding lessons there, and they engage and create a sense of community. And they're doing even more of that in this environment today, because they realize that that is a very unique piece that they can do, because it is a cooperative, and the shoppers, consumers own part of the business. Snipes is a relatively new brand name, but they have, I think, over 100 stores, or 80 to 100 stores now. It's starting in Mid-Atlantic, and they came out of Germany. And they basically used Radius 8 to highlight and surface local events that they're supporting. So they have concerts that they underwrite and they sponsor. And they wanted to support that very, very elegantly on their homepage, not in every market where it wasn't available, but only in the Mid-Atlantic markets where it was. And so they have the power to localize the content messaging in their experience on their homepage. IKEA has done something really interesting over the last 2 months. They've announced 2 different store formats, and they're much smaller. I mean, we all recognize IKEA as the big box on the edge of town, everything but the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink in that store. What they're doing now is they're tailoring the store to a smaller footprint for various markets. And so it's addressing a different type of need for a millennial who's not necessarily going to have a big house, or wants to have a huge experience, or have to rent a car or truck to go into to shop. And so again, lots of events happening in these IKEA stores and their design centers, and they're surfacing that as well. Macy's recently launched a new store in Texas. I think it opened maybe a month ago, and it is a totally different type of format. They're trying to make it extremely community focused, with cooking lessons, events, crafting, fitness classes. And their sister company, Nordstrom, has been doing these local stores for a little bit longer. And they're focused on services. Because if you think about a Nordstrom store, and if you really go through their website, you'll find that some Nordstroms has restaurants, some do tailoring, some do watch cleaning, some do. And if you look at their store, you dig in, you can find out that information. So services are a big part of the Nordstrom brand. And so what they've done is created these new formats. They have bars and they have coffee shops in some of them. And you go in and you meet with a stylist, and they can do buy online, pick up in the store, and they can do appointments. And so they're doing a lot of events. Now, granted, a lot of this stuff is slowed down over COVID, but these brands are doubling down on their stores. And so the challenge they have is, how do they get that information out to the market? How does someone know in Texas, and I forget if it's in Dallas or Houston, that new Market by Macy's store is open? If I go to Macy's homepage, how do I know that that exists in my market? I don't want to advertise it in every single market. I want to advertise it only in the specific markets where these exist. And that's what Radius 8 is all about. When we started the company, the as-is experience is that the website tends to be the same across large geographies. Let's say the United States. We operate in Europe and EMEA as well. But why does the website look exactly the same when there are differing aspects? It is snowing in Boston, and Scott's buying propane because it's going to be time to start barbecuing outside now. Or that certain products are more popular, or there are events happening. How can we empower retailers, brands, and anybody who has lots of locations and a digital presence to take advantage of all those eyeballs that go to, let's say, their homepage? And so the Radius 8 proposition of what we do is we allow business users to geofence their locations, their store locations. They can also geofence other types of locations. So let's say colleges or universities. And when a customer goes on the mobile website or on the desktop website, automatically surface some of that local information. Don't force me to go and say, does Nordstrom's have appointment setting at this location? Put in my zip code, choose my store. With a mobile user, they need that information at their fingertips. And so what we do is a customer goes in and they're near one of the stores. They go to the website, the mobile website or desktop, that information is surfaced automatically.
See, this was for me, Harlan, that was the aha moment, is really understanding that your locations can surface up information about what's happening in and around that location. So on the prior slide, there was a dot there on the California side. As you mentioned, maybe we're surfacing up that there's going to be a hike at one of your locations or a community event. But on the East Coast, you're promoting a BOPIS program. They're unique and different to each individual location. So that's what I find really, really fascinating about this, is the ability to geofence these locations and promote specific events or opportunities, sales to that specific area and that specific consumer.
Exactly. So how this is manifested. So, okay, great. I like the idea that content can be localized based upon knowing where the consumer is without having to type in a zip code and go down to the store locator and look for, if they come to the homepage, let's give them that information we want. And maybe it is an offer, maybe what's trending, or maybe that, hey, I can book an appointment at the Cherry Hill Mall store. And so that is what we do. We have the off-the-shelf solution that takes in all the Rio information about store hours, store locations, some events and things. And that's what we empower. So in a nutshell, if you think about it, Rio has the core information in their platform. We ingest that information that they have in their system, and then we add on ours. So what if you wanted to push a promotion in a certain market? Maybe the market in Richmond, Virginia isn't doing as well as the one in San Francisco. And I want to do a specialized promotion that pops up automatically when someone in the Richmond market gets on my website. We can support that. So basically being able to do hyper-local promotions, local inventory searches, surface content and digital experiences based on weather, and then layer in that other experiences. So appointment setting. So if you think about someone that might have a wedding registry or wedding appointment for a bridesmaid fitting, typically you have to go to the website, go to wedding registry, book an appointment once you put in your zip code and chosen your store. What we're saying is let's surface that up because the mobile user isn't going to click on that. So we ingest this data from Rio, from the retailer, and from our own third-party sources, and we surface up the experience automatically. And we help drive that engagement. What are those messages the retailer really wants to get across? So that, in a nutshell, is really sort of the Radius 8 value proposition in one slide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kick out for very quickly and go into my browser, and I will show you what that looks like in real time. Now, again, I'm showing you on desktop. So a consumer pops on the website, and immediately it pops up and says, hey, I'm in New York, I'm near the Kings Plaza Shopping Center. And now you'll see these are different content cards, and each of them are time, location, and weather aware. So if you go to this website right now, R8 demo, you will see a different store, a different information. Now, if I click on this, you'll see I am seeing the store information here. Now, I didn't have to go to store locator. I didn't have to put in my zip code. I'm surfacing the local store, what's going on. I can click to learn more, etc. Now, as I engage with the Radius 8 experience as welcomer, it expands a series of content cards that are time and location aware. And because I clicked on book an appointment, I'm going to be able to book an appointment right away without having to do any work at all. So this is information, and we're showing a lot of content here. You wouldn't typically do that, but for a demo, hey, maybe I've got differing deals at this store versus other stores. So all of this is time and location and weather aware and resides on the homepage. And if I click it out, you know, we have the experience, you can leave it here. Now, obviously the UI is all customizable, it's all mobile friendly, but that's sort of the value proposition of what we offer with our solution.
That's fantastic. I absolutely love it.
So we typically, you know, you think about what I've shown and I've talked about in particular is I've talked about the retail, but we also do QSR, and you can think about the experience of being able to surface that location. We drive faster orders and higher conversion because they do fewer clicks. So we create click compression. And then think about grocery stores that are having local events in their stores. They're having a tasting, or they've got special produce that's been delivered. That hyper-local grocery experience is stuff that all the brands are looking for. Now, beyond these verticals, you obviously, as I mentioned before, we can support anybody who has lots of locations and a digital presence, being able to surface that information and drive people into it. And it could be anybody from financial services like a bank. So think about a retail bank that wants to have people sign up for appointments or know that the locations are open, or offers an underwriting class and how to get a mortgage. Surfacing up that local information, making a website geo-aware, and showing that content. And that's sort of the value proposition, again, that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really, you know, kind of at the end of it, an integrated opportunity. I think the ability to take all of that information that we've talked about, that single source of truth, because one of the questions that just came up was, if a location is closed, will this update the Radius 8 welcomer? And the answer is yes, it will, because we make those changes in near real time. So anytime that we make those changes to temporarily closing a location, updating hours, etc., holiday hours, all of that information is fed into the Radius 8 platform via an API, and those changes happen in near real time. So being able to have Rio be your single source of truth, then sharing that with the Radius 8 platform to give you that hyper-local experience is really a powerful ability, or a powerful way to communicate to those consumers in and around their hyper-local location. So I really appreciate that, Harlan. It was a lot. And Tyler, I think you had something else you want to add too?
Yeah, I think it's great. And the customization, right? Everybody has a different, call to action that could be placed within those cards. I think that's a big thing too, is it's not just a one size fits all, right? Every business has a different objective when it comes to the KPIs. And how do they move consumers down that funnel, regardless if it's a call to action, if it's just making the user journey on the website much faster, and down to the point. I mean, that's why Google's great at it, right?
Yeah.
Shows right away, right? So now leveraging the actual location or domain itself, fed with real data, like Scott was alluded to, a source of truth that's accurate, it's up to date. Once again, that could be a hard process for any company, large or small, but that's definitely something where I see the biggest added value within there.
Yeah, it's interesting when we meet with customers, they say, well, can I do this with my e-commerce platform? And generally the e-commerce platforms that we run up against don't offer the business user the ability to build and deploy this content. It tends to be a much more heavier lift and custom geofencing and managing that. So what we do is we allow the business user to do that. And the other important point that Tyler, you asked me about the other day is, well, how hard is it to deploy? So we're an overlay experience. So basically what we do is we ingest the data from Rio and from the retailer, and you apply 2 lines of code to, let's say, the homepage where it's going to pop up, and that's it. Everything else takes place on the Radius 8 backend platform, again, which is business user friendly. So the friction that you typically see of, okay, I've got to now integrate to my personalization engine or my content management solution, that goes away. So I make my change in Rio, it's going to impact my Rio, my pages, it's going to impact my listings on Google and all the other third-party syndicated locations, and it's going to update my homepage and give that localized experience and help me serve localized content. And so we're super excited to partner in a more seamless way with Rio, and appreciate being part of the new Rio family.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I have a quick question real quick that came in through the Q&A. So love that people are, asking questions. What about where there's not a brick and mortar? What about a service or home service area type business?
Yep.
Uh,
So what we can do in that context. So let's say you are someone that does you do water
Cleaning services. Yeah.
a cleaning service, and you go to mycleaningperson.com. It could immediately pop up and say, "Hey, here are the nearest three people that service your area," without you having to go in, search, put in your zip code, look at the location, or look at a map. So it doesn't have to be a geofence. It can actually be just the consumer's location. So basically, the consumer becomes the geofence. And so it says, okay, I know where that person is. They're in Atlanta. Boom, I'm going to surface up the nearest three uh, uh, organizations or people that actually are servicing, or franchisees that are doing that.
Can you, Harlan, can that geofence for that service area then grow or shrink based on need? Like somebody has a lot of locations that are kind of kind of non-brick and mortar. Then do you give them the ability to kind of draw that in and out a little bit?
Yeah, so we can
Absolutely.
we can allow the consumer to do that, but we also can allow them within our, when you launch our experience, you to change your location or change your zip code or try to hone in even further. So because we have the content for all the different markets. So let's say I go to this example here, the Ronde Women's, but I'm really going to be traveling tomorrow and I want to go to a different location. So we have the ability to have, change location, put in a different zip code, and get those local events, those hours, and all that information as well. So we kind of allow you to do that and take a lot of sort of the traditional store locator and replicate it to the homepage without having to force them to click the pen, put in your zip code, choose your store, go 5 clicks down. A lot of users come in directly from a Google search, XYZ retailer near me, and they're going to land on that store page. And that's great. And that's where Rio excels. But what about all those eyeballs going to the homepage? How do we take that investment in your listings in Rio, and if the people go directly to the homepage, surface that information up immediately? And that's sort of the joint value proposition, that we can surface that information for people that enter your web. And it doesn't have to be the homepage. It could be other pages as well. It could be on the product page or a category page, or ordering page. So maybe you want to have a coupon for certain markets. When someone goes to order from the QSR and they get to the order page, and it pops up and says, "Hey, enter this coupon because you're near this franchisee that wants to do a pushed coupon."
Perfect. Yeah, and I think there's two other great questions that just came in too. One's more technical, is identification of the user IP based or mobile ID based.
Okay, so we have a multi-layer approach to doing it, and so we empower within our business console for the brand to decide what they want to do first and in what order. Do they want to ask for the location or not ask for the location? Do they want to use GPS if it's available? Do they want to use IP location? And then we also subscribe to multiple IP location databases, not just one. Most retailers that use their own are subscribing to one database. So we allow the retailer to kind of choose what they want to do. Some retailers say, I want a prompt. I want to force them to say, share my location. Or I don't want to use IP. I only want to use GPS on mobile. So all of that is flexible based upon the user's, the brand's choice. But it is multi-factor, and you can choose whatever makes the most sense. And it could be,
that's great,
GPS first. If that's not available, roll over to IP. If there's a cookie, all of that is in our. I mean, that's what we're patenting right now.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then next question would be, when it comes to, when we think of dynamic, right, or even future state, is it possible to display where a service area business will be the next business day, right? Can that be changed? So say they're servicing, I'm assuming, I'm just taking this question from one of the attendees, is, maybe it's today they service, San Diego, southern San Diego, maybe it's North Coastal the
Right.
next day. So maybe just some different logic as far as how you schedule that out.
I would have to look. We do have the capability of scheduling the content to change based automatically. So you can say, okay, I want this promotion to run. I want this content card in this market and geofence it. And I wish I could do the whole demo, but I'd love to show it because it's super easy to do the geofencing. And if it tomorrow at 2 to 5, I want to show this, and the next day between 3 and 8, I want to show this, and it would automatically change the content cards or the hints that you're seeing here within our welcomer. So you can kind of schedule out stuff as well.
Perfect.
Great stuff.
All right. Well, no, it's 10:45. Just want to see if
Wow.
a little health check on everybody if there's any other questions, or if Scott, you wanted to add any other color to this as well. I think it's been great as far as what we're doing today. As kind of how our consumers are actually interacting with brands. So if there's any questions that pop in, we'll give it a couple more minutes just for that, just to make sure. On top of that is kind of, once again, housekeeping. If you have any questions, it's going to be recorded. It's going to be available through our websites. And then on top of that is, we can always reach out. So you can always reach out to marketing@rioseo.com. But I definitely want to give a big, shout out and thanks to Harlan and Scott for jumping on this, with that content or context in that particular sense. As far as what we can do, I see it's a huge opportunity, not only for retail, but then also, not only brick and mortar, but also the service area businesses. And it's going to be an expansive partnership, right? Really looking at analytics. That's going to be huge because everything is data driven now, right? So we want to make sure that all of that's kept in place. So if you two have any, kind of closing remarks, we can wrap it up and see what's next.
Just what I think we're excited about at Rio is being able to bring more to the consumer, being able to help a brand reach those consumers, like Harlan said, and help maybe push down that click level where you're serving something up of value to a potential customer. Information, events, things that are going on. I just think it really, really makes it easier for them to find you and then engage with your brand and make purchases that way as well. So that's about all I got to say. Thank you very much to everybody else. Harlan, I'll kind of turn it over to you for one last thought before we kick out of here.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Would love to talk to anybody who's remotely interested in this and do a deeper dive, because the back-end system and the business user-friendly is really the cool part. And last point is I want to thank Christy and Chelsea for herding the cats on getting this webinar together and making all the pieces move. So appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys on this.
Great.
Thanks, Harlan.
You're welcome.
You're on mute, Tyler.
I'm talking.
Rookie mistake.
Okay, that's typically what happens. So thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any given time. Check the Twitter feed, and then look in your emails for all the information that's coming up next.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks.
Bye, guys.